Greetings, Rebel fans. My name is Jason Kelly. This is the Let's Run podcast. I am honored, privileged, and excited to be joined by your Running Rebel head coach, Josh Pastner. I'm so grateful for you jumping on the show today, Coach. I'm a fan podcast, started a couple of years ago. And, I've learned a lot in terms of covering the team. I think I'm a little too emotional often. But I just want to thank you for coming on the show and how you feeling? What's going on? It's been a crazy couple of months for you. What's the general mood down there at the Mendenhall Center?
Well, what I would tell you, Jason, first of all, thanks for having me on. And look, I want everyone to be emotional about their team, their program. So I think that's very important. Being able to try to re-energize and reignite the fan base and everybody, and whether it's the students or the alumni, the city, former players, former coaches, whatever it may be. I want to, I've always said this is your program, their program, and I understand that. That being said, I want everyone to be emotionally invested. I want it to be when we win. It's like there's nothing like it. You know what I mean? The emotions are running high. And then when we don't take care of business, if we have a tough game, if there's a tough stretch, you want people to care. And if people are going to care, they're going to be emotionally invested, and they're going to be upset if you don't play well, you don't win. Look, you know this, Jason. We all want to go 40-0 and never lose a game. I mean, that's what's great about sports. There's a scoreboard, but there's going to be some highs and lows at times. That's just part of sports. I mean, that's just in any walk of life. That being said, I think it's important for all of us I want everyone to be invested, especially emotionally, into their program. So I don't have any issue with that, Jason. I hope you remain emotionally with the program the way you are and how you're feeling with that. I want everyone to feel like that and be excited about their program. And I would also tell you that when I got the opportunity to be the head coach here, man, it was like, the back of my hair on my neck was standing up. I mean, it was goosebumps. So to say you had the chance to, I got the Running Rebels polo on today, but the 4 letters of UNLV, just being able to wear that polo, wearing those letters. It's a global name. And it's like putting on your little league jersey to be able to say you've done that. So totally excited, totally enthused. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. There's no denying that, but looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah. There's probably going to be a few people listening to this that raise their eyebrows a little bit when you see you on my show, because, when we hired you, I was having an incredibly emotional night. I just finished a midterm. I'm just graduating law school tomorrow at UNLV. It was a dream to go to UNLV.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I did my undergrad at BYU, and I always say real Mormons are rebels, But yeah, grew up going to the games, and it's interesting to finally talk to the head coach of the person that's kind of responsible for my mental health from November to March. So I want to say you have a lot of response, and my entire family is, to be honest with you. So very interesting to talk to that person. Normally I talk to myself, but November to March, all bets are off in terms of my emotional well-being. But I wanted to, publicly on the show apologize to you, because I feel like my initial reaction, which got quite a few people on, there was a lot of people listening to that show. And I think that sometimes as fans, we become so obsessed with being right and being, entertaining, even content wise, that you forget why you started the whole show in the first place. I don't make money off of this. I do this every single game. I do pregame, postgame, everything, cover the team from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And the goal is to have a good Running Rebel basketball program. And so you're the guy to do that. You're the head coach. And I think it's our responsibility as fans. And so I want to apologize to you publicly for my, kind of crazy reaction to you being hired, because it was just an emotional day. And I hadn't done research on you at all. And I get on there and I just wanted to apologize to you and thank you for engaging with people, especially people that have been critical of you in the past without really knowing you at all, to be honest. And I just want to thank you for that and apologize to you.
Well, no, first of all, Jason, no need to apologize. I appreciate it very much. Let me just say this. I get it. I mean, this is a big time program, and the job's open, probably everyone wanted Phil Jackson or Brad Stevens, and I get it. You know what I mean? I understand that, and so I understand how things are. But on the other hand, look, I want to do as good of a job as I can to making sure that we get into the community, and as I mentioned earlier, Jason, to really re-energize, reignite the fan base, because I'm not just saying this sitting in this chair. Like this is not my program. It will never be my program. This is your program. It's the city's program. It's the students' program. It's the alumni's program. All the former players and the great teams and coaches that have been here, it's their program. My job is to try to help move it forward. I'm kind of sitting in that chair as the gatekeeper moving it forward. So I understand that. I understand the preciousness of this job. Like, I get it. And I'm not just saying that. I believe it. I believe it in the deepest part of my core. And so that all being said is I want people to, as I mentioned earlier, to feel invested. And so I'm a down to earth guy. What you see with me is what you get. I mean, I put my email on the website, on the school website. I respond to people because I think that's important. And I think it's awesome that a guy like you who you got a lot of things going on, graduating from law school, which is terrific. Congratulations to you. But to be able to do these type of shows, pregame, postgame, I think the more stuff we can get out there about UNLV basketball to promote, to market, to talk about the vision and the product that we want to do, I think it's great. Now, yes, we've got to do our part. We've got to get great players, and we've got to put a great product on the floor and play the right way, and play a way that Jason, you and the rest of the fan base are appreciative of your team, of when they go on the floor. And that's whether the ball is going through the hoop or not, because you want to be as a team filled with competitive excellence. I just think that is so important on the way you compete on every possession. And so anyway, I say all that to say, going back to understanding what is sitting in this chair, understanding the excitement and the enthusiasm to be able to do it. This is a 24/7 city. The head coach at UNLV has got to be a 24/7 guy. That's what I am. And I'm looking forward to, I felt we've done a good job in a quick turnaround of trying to reconstruct a roster. The key part now is once they get here in the summer school, how to gel them together. Because team chemistry, cohesiveness, setting our culture and our tone of what we want to do, Jason, of how we want to play. So you and the rest of all Rebel Nation, of everybody out there, can be proud of your program. And that is a waking thing that I'm thinking of every single waking second, of how do we continue to move the program forward? What do we've got to do? And to do it, you got to have great enthusiasm. You got to have a great outlook. You got to have great clarity and great excitement about what's in front of you.
Totally. I did have a question. How's been the move? Like, you come to Vegas, like, have you found a place to live? I heard a rumor that you were in a hotel for a while. Like,
yeah.
How's your family? Like, that's kind of the big thing that interests me. Like, how are you, like, personally doing? Like, I know you got to be tired, you got to be exhausted, but you're working hard. How are the kids? Are you moving well? Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, great question, Jason. What I would tell you is, yes, I got the job in, whatever it was in later March. And I've been in a hotel since, I've just have stayed in a hotel. I've got a wife and four little kids, and they're back in Atlanta right now. And so I have barely seen them. And in fact, there's been some days where you go, because of the time change, Eastern time zone, Pacific time zone, Jason, I've gone some days, and I'm not proud of this at all, where I get back to the hotel like at 11:30 at night. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even talk to my wife or kids today. Like, almost like you can't forget that you don't have a family. And so I would then get up at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. our time to make sure I call them before they go to school and talk to them all. And because, just during the day, it just gets so fast and furious. And so I've been in a hotel because right now the only focus I have focus on is how do we move the program forward for the UNLV Runnin' Rebel men's basketball program. So we're getting closer to getting, as school gets out, I'll get my family up here in June. We'll get to a house at some point there in at some point this summer and get to there. But that's not the focus right now when you get a job like this is you've got to be, there's a lot to do. I mean, because you had to reconstruct a roster and do that. And you've got to do it in real time because the things that you're doing to try to evaluate the best you can via the film and also fit it within, Jason, within your budget. Because let's call it like it is in this day and age, it's not just recruiting anymore. And I'm a guy that loves recruiting, but it's a different form of recruiting now because it is where due to NIL deals and eventually it's just going to be straight pay to play direct from school to player. I mean, that's where it's moving to. You got to then go out and be a great fundraiser too. You got to go try to raise money, but you've also then got to fit in with your roster within the budget that you have. And obviously other programs or other conferences are going to have higher budgets than other programs and other schools. So you've got to do a great job. And I almost call it like a Moneyball approach where you're trying to evaluate properly, be really good. And then you've got to be a great salesperson with that agent and prospect to convince them why it's better to come here, even if you have to take some less money, but what the gains that will be for you later on because of what we're going to do and how we're going to get you better, player development, sweat equity, being in the foxhole and the trenches with you, our vision of how we want to play, and then being in Las Vegas and the chance to be part of something that is outstanding and just needs a little bit of the trees rattle a little bit to kind of wake it up a little bit, and you got a chance to be part of that. So really trying to convince those guys during that process was an interesting thing, but I felt we did a nice job during that time period.
I actually really, and I think part of the reason why when you see a new hire, because we've had quite a few hires at UNLV over the last 10 years, and not all of that's been the school's fault or even the coaches who were here's fault. There's just kind of been some unlucky circumstances, I would say, for the Run and Rebel program. But once you see the roster, you can actually evaluate how a coach is done. And I think that's important. Like I've been incredibly impressed by the guys that you've gotten. And I look at, I did kind of a deep dive, I've done a couple on your career and kind of what you've done. And my favorite story, the 2019-20 Georgia Tech team, when you guys had kind of a Princeton style offense, and it was a lot of passing. I mean, there was some split action, a lot of really cool stuff. I've watched probably 40, 50 games from different years of your career now. But you guys have a terrible game against Ball State. You're on a plane and you scrap your entire offensive playbook just to try and give your guys a better chance to win. And it ends up doing really good things for you guys. You end up you beat Boise State, which we always appreciate beating Boise State at UNLV, especially, because they're in our conference, so thank you for that. But that kind of shows me that you tend to be willing to adapt your coaching style to your players. What goes into making a decision like that mid-season where you literally scrap your entire offensive playbook? You go from Princeton style to a spread pick and roll style. Like what does that feel like? And how do you know when to pull the trigger like that as a coach? Yeah,
Jason, man, appreciate you being on top of all that stuff. Good for you and doing your research. So, really cool for you to be alert to that. What was interesting when I was at Memphis, because I was the head coach at Memphis for 7 years, and we played really fast. We were trying to score, the whole goal was to score 100 a game. You know what I mean? We were trying to just wear you out through how we played on both ends of the floor. What was interesting when I got the Georgia Tech job, Jason, I went in there, and because of the academic component, and you got to remember, before Memphis, I was at Arizona. And so being there, it was very fast paced. And so that's all I knew. Even before then, when I was doing AAU basketball with the Houston Hoops, very fast paced. That's all I knew. When I took over the Georgia Tech job, I was like, okay, I look around in the league and I'm saying, okay, you got Duke. This is the ACC at the prime when there were 6 Hall of Fame coaches and about 2 more are going to be in the Hall of Fame. And you're looking around, okay, I get it. I'm probably, as much as I love recruiting and I believe I'm a good recruiter, I'm probably not going to go in and just go out recruit Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim. It's just probably not reality at that time period. Okay. And plus at Georgia Tech, it was MIT, but if you're playing in the ACC, it was an Ivy League school in the ACC. So I said, how are we going to compete and be different? Evaluation was going to be critical. Jason, on making sure, and then player development. But then I said, we've got to play totally different. And playing totally different in that league that nobody else played in that league was complete Princeton, was complete different types of offenses, unorthodox, unique, and then defensively doing what we did on all the zone defenses and the changing of defenses, because we felt we had to be different to give us our best chance to win. So I went from a mentality where just try to score 100 every game, like just wear the teams out, to literally doing a complete opposite, to say this is what we've got to do. Then, as you mentioned, and so we believed in cutting. It was just cut after cut after cut, all types of cutting. Then when we, as you mentioned, we had a tough stretch there, and we didn't play well against. We had a kid, Jordan Usher, who got eligible, was out due to, from a transfer thing. The portal was not there at that time. We put him in the starting lineup. It just wasn't. The Alvarado kid, our starting point guard, did not play due to an ankle injury. We weren't good. We just weren't in sync. And I felt we were just kind of bland. And we, as much as I loved the Princeton offense, I said, okay, this doesn't fit us right now. How do we change? And we had a little bit of a break going to Hawaii before we were playing in the Diamond Head, starting off against playing Boise State. We completely scrapped our offense, played totally different, putting some new things, as you mentioned, spread, pick and roll, and literally in about a week and a half period became a new team, and then became one of the best teams in the ACC the rest of the year. I'm a big believer, I call it wearing loose fit clothing, being able to be flexible, adapt, and change on real time when you need to is important to do. Now, Jason, you still, your core values, your culture, that can't ever change, and what you believe in. And that was more of a system base that we were able to change in, but on what we believed in 50-50 balls, how hard we're going to play defense, or how we're going to compete on the defensive end. I don't like using the word how hard you're going to play. I believe in it's how you're going to compete. Jason, you and I could get on the floor and play hard. What is that? It's about the competitive excellence. It's about competing. It's about when that ball shot up and it's on the glass there, are you trying to get your pinky on it just to keep it alive? Because winning that one, forget the game, trying to win that possession is more important than actually breathing. Like, that's the mentality that I want our program, that your program, to have as we move forward. So yes, we had to figure that out. And I'm a guy that believes in, hey, look, you've got to fit to what, it's a player's game. So you've got to fit to what's best for the success of the strengths of your players. And that's why people have asked me how we're going to play. I have a vision how we're going to play and how I want to play and what we're going to do. I have a real clarity on that. And I really believe we targeted that into the portal and who we signed, Jason. That being said, I haven't coached any of the guys yet. You know what I mean? And I won't know that until we get to June and July, because I could have a certain thing. Hey, this guy is not able to do this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, he's really good at that. We need to take advantage of that. Or I thought this good guy was going to be really good at this and not so much at this, but it was flipped once I get to coach him. And so then we've got to adjust a little bit as we go. So I'm really excited about going through this summer to really have a better feel of what we have to be able to coach him on the floor.
Yeah, the team that kind of reminds me of that 2013 team that had Joe Jackson, Chris Crawford, Jaron Johnson, Michael Dixon. They played fast. They subbed a ton. I was surprised how often you guys would take guys out. You were kind of like almost doing hockey. I mean, not really hockey subs, but like. And I look at the team that you've built now, and it kind of reminds me of that team. I look at Kamani, and I look at Dre, and I'm still trying. It's Dre, right? Isn't that how I pronounce Dre's name?
Yeah, Dre. Yeah. But he likes to go by Dre. Yep, that's right.
Okay,
yep.
Dre. I want to make sure, because I said draw the first month.
No, it's not Dre. Yeah, because it's Dravian, but you go by Dre. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I look at the roster that we have right now, and it kind of reminds me of that 2013 team that played super. I mean, obviously, and you do not know that, like you said, until you see these guys play on the court. But I see those I could see like hockey subs, and you bring in guys, and Kamani is a menace in the half court, and then going out in the break, and you can see, and then Nas is in the corner. It's just so fun to see the vision of this team. But I kind of wanted to talk about defense. One of my favorite games ever that I watched was the North Carolina game, and you basically were switching between a 1-3-1, and you were doing kind of a matchups, and then you switched into a matchup zone. And then you were doing really cool ball pressure, like man principles, which I thought was really great. Is that kind of like and you know, I don't want to talk about previous Running Rebel head coaches, but I don't feel like I've always seen a ton of like in games that, you know, they always had a philosophy and they were running it throughout the whole game. But is that something that you still see yourself doing as a coach, being willing to throw in wrenches and weird kind of defensive philosophies in the middle of games?
Absolutely, Jason. In fact, the game you're talking about, North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina.
Yeah, and it was at, I don't know which one, but one of the games we were playing at the Dean Dome. There, we had the largest lead ever in the halftime of the game.
Incredible.
At North Carolina. Let me tell you something. It's very hard to win at North Carolina. It's almost impossible to win at North Carolina.
Yep.
But we ended up winning the game there, so it was a heck of a win. But yes, we did some different things in the changing of defenses, I felt, and how we did it really kept teams sometimes off guard. So yes, I want to continue to. I still have that vision of that, of being of trying to be unique and different. I think it's no different than I look at how do we have in-game entertainment at Thomas and Mack. We've got to think outside the box. We've got to be different. We've got to be unique. We can't be the same, not in this day and age. You know what I mean? And it's sort of how I believe in how we need to play. We just can't be traditional. We've got to be different. We've got to be unique. We've got to think of things that are really hard for teams to play against us, to scout against us, all those type of uniqueness. And I think that will go into in how we play within the system and on the defensive end. And as much as we all talk about, and I've talked about, we all want to get back to the running Rebels and playing up tempo. And everyone talks about in the days of Coach Tarkanian and those 80s and 90s teams. But you know what got them playing fast, or how to play fast, or how to run? You have to be great defensively. Mm-hmm. You've got to be great on the defensive end. You've got to get stops. If you're continuing to take the ball out of the net all the time, it's harder to run that way. The best way to get out and transition and go and be the running Rebels is you've got to get stops, and then you can fly up the floor and let's go and let's attack the basket and really play in strike mode of what we want to do from there.
I always think about it like when I think about running, I think about how are you running in the half court on defense? You know, like how are you scrambling around the perimeter to make sure that these guys aren't getting comfortable shots? That's what I'm thinking about. That's the run-in. The run-in is that's just the cherry on top of the cake when you're throwing down when Nas is catching a lob from Dre. You know, that's the cherry on top of the cake. But the run-in is in the half court on the defensive side of the ball.
Jason, I have an assistant spot open. I could hire you right now.
Oh no.
You're better off being a lawyer. But because I am so, you and I are actually aligned on that, because so much on defensively, on the defensive side of the ball, as you talk about running, you are so right. It's so much about the scramble or the recovery or the rotation or the second, third, and fourth multiple effort. Because look, whether it's the NBA or high level college basketball, you know this, Jason. And all your listeners and followers know this. Look, the offense is always going to most of the time have an advantage on the defense just because of spacing. The game's different now. You can drive but there's going to be times where you're going to be in scramble and you're going to have to rotate. And as you mentioned, you've got to fly. Literally, you're flying around, but then it's the second and third and fourth effort on how you're moving. And that's where I go back to, it's a competitive mindset. Defense is all about discipline. Like, hey, man, the discipline that I'm going to not just kind of give a half effort here and then kind of watch everything over there. No, it's going to be the discipline to make the effort here. And then you're going to fly back to make the second effort there. And it might take a third effort to finish off the rebound to do what you got to do. That's where that competitive excellence is all about.
Totally. And one of my quotes that I love that you gave, I think it's 2012, you said, at Memphis, we are trying to recruit length and then teach it how to think. And I look at teams in our league like San Diego State that have definitely kind of embodied that philosophy. And I look at this roster right now, and I think there's plenty of length. And I actually think that a lot of these guys are pretty smart players too. When I went through their tape, especially, Miles and just incredible stuff. I mean, and then Kamani especially. I mean, I kind of lost. I couldn't sleep after we signed Kamani. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's perfect. He's like Mike Moser, if you know who Mike Moser is, ex-Running Rebel player. But just I was just fantasizing, of all the cool stuff you could do with him. But is that still your mindset? Recruiting length and then teaching it how to think. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you want to have great length because I think that helps, especially in the defenses and the things that we do defensively. It gives you more. It creates more problems for the offensive end. Now, length doesn't matter. So when you're thinking about, length doesn't matter if you're not, as you just mentioned, if you're not flying around with the multiple effort and you're playing like, from A to Z at such an intensity and force, then the length doesn't matter. Because and that's where if you're a smaller guy, no issue, but you better be a junkyard type of tough mentality. Like, again, going back to the mentality, Jason, of winning is more important than breathing. So that's how it's got to be the mindset of getting that loose ball is more important than the actual breath that you're about to take. And so it's got to go to back all that. But if you can play like that with that type of force and intensity, and you have length, like you mentioned about a San Diego State, that's where you become really good. You even look at it like a University of Houston defensively and the way they read the ball because of this you mentioned around. It's how they run on the defensive side of the ball in the half court, and they have length. And they might not be all 7-footers, but they have length as in terms of this way, maybe not all here, but this way, but they play because of how they play defensively, which then it makes it really hard for teams to score on you. And so, but that's going to be on me and our staff to making sure that we set that tone early in June. And I believe that we found guys who understand that, because in this climate, yes, guys are getting paid. There's money it is what it is, as we all know. But you've got to make sure you find the right guys who have that drive within, who are highly self-motivated, where winning matters, where it still matters. It's not just about, hey, let me get the best NIL deal, and then, I've made it. I don't care about anything else. You've got to make sure, and that's where the point of the evaluation, and that's where me explaining to the players that we recruited, here's our standards, here's what we're going to hold you accountable to, here's going to be our discipline, and we're not wavering on that 1 second, and we're holding this standard at a very high level, and I will not lower my standard to anybody. Not happening. It's everyone's responsibility to raise their standard to where I have it at. And if you can do that, that's how you then I'm able to win games on the road, win games when you are not playing. Because you know this, Jason, they're going to have off nights offensively. I mean, it's basketball. I mean, you look at the Knicks and Celtics the other day. The Celtics going to make a three. So you're going to have days where you're just not shooting the ball well. But how do you win in those games when it's kind of a ugly or muck it up type of game? That's where those type of things you just mentioned on the defensive end on what you've got to do, and that's just got to be a standard.
Yeah, and I love, that 2013 Memphis team, again, is the team that I always keep going back to. But I love that team had elite steal percentage. I mean, you guys were taking everything away from the other team, and you guys were, being really annoying, getting deflections like everywhere. But then I look at your 2021 Georgia Tech team, and that team didn't get very many steals, but it was like a no-fly zone around the rim. I mean, you guys did not allow anything there. And so I really love that kind of versatility. And I think that's something, again, that you don't really see when you're a fan and you are reacting to a hire. You don't see that kind of stuff unless you really do your homework and dig into somebody's career. And I really appreciate that. And I think that, I look at guys like Steffens on our team right now. I imagine we probably are looking to add, I think we have a few more scholarship spots, a couple more scholarship spots.
Let me say there's two things. One is, even going back to that, you're right about, and a great job by you doing your research, but you're right on the 21 team when we won the ACC championship. Actually, we didn't get a lot of steals. We created a lot of turnovers for the opponents, and maybe it was the ball thrown out of bounds, whatever it may be. My whole thing was protect the rim at all cost, like just protect the rim at all cost. And but in the ACC championship game against Florida State, we had the most steals in the history of an ACC championship game in that game because of our ball thing. Let me go back to the thing. So we have talked about roster. We're at 13 scholarships right now, because a couple of people have asked me about this. We're at 13 scholarships. Look, guys are trying to help me with the other players around the country. I wish we could sign 30 guys. It's almost like a football team. You want to get everybody, but we're at 13 scholarships where that is right now. Okay, so we are at 13. We cannot sign anybody else unless the House settlement passes, because per the rules as of today, you're only allowed 13 scholarships. Mm-hmm. And you've got to remember the House settlement, which was about roster limits, Can you pay directly from directly school to the student athlete? You didn't have to go through a third party. Is all within, and the judge was supposed to approve that on May the 7th.
Wilkins. Yep.
And she sent it back to the attorneys because it was over this roster thing.
Yep.
And so we were under the impression at that time we were going to get 2 more opportunities of scholarships. But right now, like I've had some other guys that have wanted to come. We can't take them because I don't have a scholarship. And you can't, and technically it's not real to sign them on a scholarship if you don't have one. Will the judge pass that rule? I do believe, but it was supposed to be May 7th. It might not be till June 7th. It could be July 15th. Everyone in the country is waiting on what the judge is going to do. So right now we're in a holding pattern. And as you know this, Jason, as you're in a holding pattern, if you were going to get another guy or so, your other guys are going other places. I mean, because they're not waiting around because they don't want to lose opportunities.
You're limiting your options if you fill those spots with a couple of walk-ons or something.
You're just waiting. You're under the direction of the judge, and we're just waiting on that. And then also you've got to make sure that you fit it within your budget of what you have allowable for NIL. And so that is for another, and I would like to get back on at another time too, to go even more in depth on that, to continue to educate even your listeners and followers so they know, hey, here's the reality of it. And because there is a limit. Now, if you're in a different conference and you're in one of the Power Four or the Big East, because of the revenue sharing, it's a different deal. You have more opportunities budget-wise. But when you're not in one of those, you've got to then sometimes play a little bit of a money ball approach at times. And that's just the reality of it as we are right now. And so I think we've done a really good job with it. We've got a great, team set up around us. We just got to keep, moving forward. And I think that those other things will come as we continue to move forward. And look, we need the students. We need the students back involved. We need people back into Thomas and Mack. And I'm a guy that, yes, winning matters. I get that. I've been in it long enough to know how important winning is. I also know how important how you play is important. Okay, take those two things out for a second, okay? Because again, I understand that. And so, but it's important that the students and the alumni understand that, hey, this is your team, your program. You want to help your team and your program to elevate and move forward. We need to have an incredible home court advantage. So when teams come here, it's almost impossible for them to win. Like they need to play a near perfect game, like that they're playing 7-on-5 because of the noise in Thomas and Mack, the electricity, the energy in the building has got to be ramped up. So the team that's coming in, it's almost impossible for them to win. And that's what we've got to get to. And it's an everyday waking second of that. I'm trying to make sure that how you do that for your team and for your program. Yes, winning takes care of a lot of it. Yes, putting a great product on the floor. But it's also kind of like Jason, like what came first, the chicken or the egg? You also need the people in there so you can win those home games as well too, to give you, I want to make it, forget being a sixth, people talk about having a sixth man. I want it to be a seventh and eighth man. Like, how do you get that crowd to be like that, where it's literally almost impossible for an opponent to come in here and beat UNLV and Thomas Mack?
Yeah, and I totally think that, a lot of people think that pro sports have really hurt the Runnin' Rebels, but I actually totally think that Vegas just likes winning. I mean, and some people think the NBA team coming to Vegas is going to hurt. I totally disagree with that, because more basketball means more people love basketball. It's going to be really expensive to go to those NBA games, and they can be like, oh, maybe I can go for a slightly cheaper price to a really awesome program in the Runnin' Rebels. And I just think more basketball, like the Raiders have not hurt UNLV football. So I feel like it's a great opportunity. And Vegas is such a cool town.
You can't look at it as a negative. You can't look at it as the glass is half empty. Jason, you've got to look at it as the glass is overflowing. Yep. And so you've got to look at it like, what a great sell to say we've got the Raiders here. We've got the Golden Knights here. We've got the Aces here. The Oakland Athletics are eventually coming here for Major League Baseball. You are right. There's going to be an NBA team coming here at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be awesome. We're the epicenter. Las Vegas is the epicenter of the entertainment capital of the world. It's the epicenter of the sports capital of the world now. Let's go. We should not look at that as a burden or as a negative. We've got to look at it as a positive. That means more foot traffic comes through. And yes, is there some more competition? Absolutely. But so be it. To me, that means the city's growing. There's more people. We just got to keep getting out there, keep getting the message out there, and have them come to the games. And we've got to do our part, obviously winning, but put a great team in the way we play on the floor. So when they leave there, they're like, man, I feel invested emotionally with that team, and I love how they play. And
there's always been competition in Vegas, and Vegas has always been an entertainment. Because especially because of the proliferation of sports gambling, it is the sports capital of the world. Like, there is no doubt that it is that.
Jason, there's competition. I mean, we're trying to compete to win the Mountain West Conference. I mean, there's competition. If the other team we play wants to win, you're going to be a lawyer. You're going to have competition for the client that you're going to try to. I mean, that's what makes the world go around, is competition. If you don't have competition, then you just end up. If you don't have, and I go back to the word competitive excellence. If you don't have that, one, you won't be aligned to me. But two, you can get yourself, lazy, not with a motor. You're just kind of just waiting for things. Man, you've got to be thinking 24/7 and just your mind racing. It's got to be when you're sleeping in at 2:30 a.m. You get up because your mind's racing about an idea, because you don't want your competition to get it and to beat you to it. So that's what's great about competition. You got to embrace it all.
Yep, and I'm gonna let you get out of here because you're an incredibly busy person, and fans, I'm a part of the Burner Brigade. We've got our little fan group online, and we love UNLV. We're trying to promote UNLV. We can be a little over emotional, but I just want to pitch a little bit for you, because you've been pitching a lot. You've been selling yourself and selling this program. Rebel fans and future recruits, look at guys like Moses Wright. Look at Jose Alvarado. Look at Josh Okogie. Look at DJ Steffens. These are guys that were 3-star players, not super highly recruited coming out of high school, that end up playing in the NBA under Coach Pastner. Look at the way that they develop. Look at their start of their career, especially Jose Alvarado is one of my favorite players in the NBA. I didn't even realize he played for you until a couple months ago, until after we'd already hired you. And that kind of development is not something that you're going to get at any other school. I think that you have shown a real ability to develop talent, develop players, and develop programs. And I am really, really, really proud, to have you as our coach, and I'm proud to help you and support you, especially in this first year, because it's really important to hit the ground running. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. I want to help sell this program with you, because this is the connection I have with my parents. I go to every game with my mom and my dad, and my grandparents love the Rebels, my uncles. This is family. That's the great thing about college sports. It's heritage. It's something you take down to the grave with you. And I wish you luck, Coach. And I want to give you, obviously we'd always love to have you on, but I want to thank you for even taking the time on just to do this one, because it's amazing. And
Jason, let me just say this: congratulations to you on you being able to set up this Let's Run podcast and the following that you have. So, because that doesn't happen just overnight. So congratulations to you from kind of starting something from ground zero and building it up. 2, congratulations to you on becoming a lawyer. That's not easy, and it's a lot of schooling. So congrats to you. 3, I want to just to hit 1 second on what you said about Moses Wright and those guys. Moses Wright, who was the ACC Player of the Year, was a 0-star. He wasn't a 3-star. He was a 0-star. It was us and a Division II school that was offering him, and he played on his B team, on his AAU team. Wasn't even on his top team, and just like people thought I was crazy when I took him. Same thing with Alvarado. They said, Coach, he's too small. And same thing with, like you said, DJ Steffens. There was nobody who would even. I mean, guys were emailing him trying to like Division III teams wouldn't even take the guy, and Josh Okogie didn't even start on his AAU team, and wasn't even one of the top 10 players in the state of Georgia. So you talk about player development. That's been our survivability. I believe in that wholeheartedly. And Jason, I want to be back on. I know you have an audience. I don't look at it like, hey. The other day I did John Rothstein on his podcast, and he's obviously a national name, works for CBS. To me, man, it doesn't matter if it's you, Jason, or John Rothstein, or if it's anything else. Like, I don't look at anything like the different. I look at everyone's important, whether the audience is 10 million or it's 10 people. To me, it's important because that's what you've got to do to get the message out. And look, I think it's important even during when we do our radio or TV shows once we're in season. I want the fans to call in and hear and communicate and look. Hey, if someone's frustrated about something with their program, like, hey, you know, we had a tough game. I get it. And that's the way people get involved. And as you mentioned, the emotional investment into their program. And it just can't be when things are all going, you're winning every game. It's got to be, you got to accept the heat and the criticism when things are, if you have a tough stretch or you're not playing well. Like, you just can't all of a sudden be there when it's all good and as the head coach. And so I really mean that. The more I can get on, I think it's the better. And so it doesn't matter, again, if it's a national or if it's local or if it's regional, the more people can hear and understand our vision and why we did something and why it worked or didn't work, hey, the better, so everyone can be on the same page. I'm a big, big believer in transparency and communication.
Perfect. Well, this program means everything to me. You know, it really does. And I love a lot of sports teams. I love sports in general, but nothing is like your first love, right? And me standing on the court and seeing them take down #1 North Carolina, I was hooked for the rest of my life. And what it does for my family and my parents, it's just, it means everything to me. So, Coach, thank you so much. We will hopefully have you on again soon at some point. You're incredibly busy, and I'm studying for the bar exam now, so I'm also incredibly busy.
You're busy too. Well, good luck with that. Yeah. We'll connect again, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Coach. We'll talk soon. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you.